So today we're going to talk all about bulking, and if you're somebody who's asking yourself, should I cut first? Should I bulk first? Kind of where do I fit in with me trying to gain muscle mass? And this is a common question because a lot of people, they don't know if they should lean out first, decrease, get yourself really lean, and then put yourself in a great situation to gain muscle. And then there's other people who, want to gain muscle, but maybe they have some body fat. So in this video, I just want to shed some light on some things to help people, whether you're a beginner or more advanced, navigate that question, because it's not necessarily one direct answer for everybody. It kind of depends on where you're at. There's pros and cons of each, and everything's kind of a range on what you want to do here. So, I kind of back up here. I'm now in my late 30s. I've been, kind of been doing bulking and cutting cycles, and I started kind of really getting serious into it about my mid to late 20s. I was always somebody who was leaner. I walked around typically around 10%, and I always struggled with the idea of bulking because as much as I wanted to get jacked and grow the muscle, I also in my head had this issue where I didn't want to see the body fat. So I always thought that maybe I could gain muscle without drugs and stay lean, and it was just really difficult, right? Because I'd have some success and then I'd gain a little bit of body fat and I'd pump the brakes and I'd crazy and scared. So that was kind of my issue, was that I was always on the leaner side and I never could gain the muscle mass because I never wanted to go through that period where gaining pounds for a purpose, and the purpose was gaining muscle mass, eating more, and then losing the fat after. On the other end of the spectrum, right, I work with a lot of people who obviously want to get stronger and gain muscle, but they maybe aren't starting from a lean period, and they have this fallacy in their head that they can't get stronger and can't gain muscle unless they eat more, even though they're already higher in the body fat percentage. So today I wanted to kind of offer a range that you can play in, and if you're kind of above the range or at the top end or down at the bottom end, you can strategize what is best for you. So when we look at body fat percentages for both men and women, we want to pay attention to kind of the correlation to the sex hormones. So in men it's testosterone, and in women it's estrogen. Both of those have been shown to help produce muscle growth. Testosterone for men, estrogen for women. Testosterone drops in men, as we age. Once women hit menopause, it drops, and you see a lot of adverse effects in terms of muscle retention, and as well as higher body fat accumulation with those hormones when they drop. So we really want to try and focus on when are they highest. And some research has been shown that for men, it's typically around 10 to 11%. So if it's too low, testosterone drops. If it's too high, testosterone drops. So at 10 to 11% is kind of that sweet spot. For women, that's more about that 23 to 25% is what some research is showing out there in terms of body fat percentage correlated to peak estrogen levels for women and body fat percentage peak testosterone levels for men. And this is both drug-free and relatively healthy, so no other things going on. So if you have other hormonal issues, this probably doesn't apply to you. I'm not a doctor, so don't take that, but if you're just a general person looking for this. But I digress. So when we go back to this, we want to look at then the next thing is, if we know that that's kind of where we're at, we want to look at, okay, maybe that's that sweet spot, so maybe we start a little bit before that sweet spot, and then we obviously want to, how far can we exceed that? We want to look at what happens if we go maybe 15%, 20% for men, 25%, 30% for women. Are there adverse effects of getting that high? So some things we want to look at, what's been shown is that when body fat percentages in men and in women start to increase, 20% for men, 30% for women, we start to see a lot of negative health consequences, such as increased visceral fat accumulation. So that's fat around the organs. That's not good. That's linked to a bunch of chronic disease. We also have seen chronic inflammation starts to really ramp up more and more, around, again, 20% for men and that high 20s, 30% for women. Another crazy thing about chronic inflammation is that it's also been correlated, the higher the chronic inflammation has also been correlated with decreased muscle growth. So we now are starting to see how that impacts our ability. You have the hormone, obviously. We have that sweet spot to grow muscle for the hormone for men and women. We also have now on this end of the spectrum kind of when things start to get a little too high body fat percentage, we're starting to see increased visceral fat accumulation, which is not, no fat's great, but obviously around the organs is not good. And then high chronic inflammation, which also is not great, and it's also not great for muscle growth. So now we're really starting to get into the ranges. And this is when you're going back to the original question, should I gain weight or should I eat more and just gain weight even though I'm not lean, or should I lose the weight first and then start bulking? So if you're somebody, and this is kind of, if you're somebody who's leaner, I typically like to start a bulk around 8 to 10%, and I will run that bulk up until I get to about 15, maybe 17%, but that's really high. So about 10 to 15% is my bulking range. I try to start at the low end, and I'll eat progressively and get to the high end. And throughout that period, I know my body, you know, I'm not gaining a bunch of inflammation, I'm not gaining a bunch of visceral fat, I'm still staying close to my peak testosterone levels, and I'm gaining pounds for a purpose, right? I'm, you know, in that range, I'm putting on muscle, my body's in a good prime environment to put the muscle on. I'm gaining some fat, but I can get that fat off later, right? That's kind of where I'm at. So if you're somebody who's sitting higher than that, maybe 20, 25, 30%, this is not to say don't train strength, because I think a lot of research is showing you can also gain the strength and lose the weight. So what we do is we train hard as if you were, you know, trying to bulk. Well, how do we, a bulking program versus a weight loss program? It's all the same, really. We're training hard to intensity, we're lifting with heavy, moderate weights, we're pushing intensity close to failure, we're increasing our volume, or whether that's increasing sets, reps, load, or all three in a combination, and we're seeing progress that way. So we're pushing that intensity. If you're somebody who's, you know, trying to get down to that lower range, try and improve in the gym and eat less. And at some point you'll start to see where if you're eating not enough and your performance is starting not to get better in the gym, then you're probably at that point where now we have the decision of like, okay, maybe we're sitting 15, 20% body fat, we're a male. Now we have to make a decision, should we maybe focus on, you know, I can't train as hard as I want to unless I eat more, and obviously I'm trying to lose weight, so that's where we then go into like calorie deficit, more severe, and we kind of try and hold on to that muscle mass. The same way somebody who's cutting is doing that, right? Now on the other end, if you're somebody who is trying to gain mass and you're on that low end, if you're gaining, your improvements, you're doing more reps, doing more weights, everything's going great in the gym, you're eating more, and then you notice that you're still eating more, you're still putting on weight, but you haven't really you're not pacing the same as in the gym as you were in the beginning, that might be an indicator that you're kind of near that end point where your body's like, hey, I've grown enough muscle I can right now for this. This is about the rate I can. So all that excess calories and all those excess pounds that you're gaining on the scale, probably more and more of it are from fat. And that is the same how I would attack with women, right? It's just the scales are different. So the men, the optimal range might be between 10 and 15 is kind of where I want to keep you. And then women, it might be between, you know, 18, 20% is the low end, all the way up maybe to 25, 27%, and that's kind of my range. So let's call it, you know, 18 to 25% is where I want to play in that range. If I'm starting on the outside of that, I'm going to train hard in the gym and just eat less, increase my activity outside of the gym, get myself close to that border until I can't continue to push the intensity in the gym at my calorie deficit, because obviously I'm losing weight. Then I might have to bring the intensity down in the gym and really try to get myself down to the end of the spectrum. Same thing with the men or women who are at the lower end, the leaner start. I want you guys to eat. I want you to train hard. Enjoy that experience. You know, do it progressively. I'm not going to go into full detail of like what to eat, how much to eat, how to track your weight. I have all that in my clean bulking series, which I'll link below. But you would just do that, and then you get to a point where if you know your body fat and you do body composition tests, then that makes it really easy. But if you don't, there's cues that you can pick up on in your training, like, am I progressing at the same rate? Is my weight still going up, but I'm not progressing in my workouts? And that probably tells you you probably need to like pump the brakes a little bit on eating. And then that's kind of how I would go with it with my clients and talk about that. So I know I've really kind of sped through this stuff. I have a bunch of videos on my channel about clean bulking, but you know, this is something that they're questions that I get a lot, and it's something that I've struggled with from somebody always trying to gain muscle mass. I used to be 175 pounds. You know, I remember looking at videos and pictures of people who had this amazing physique. You know, their shoulders were out, their bicep veins were here. And now, you know, that was me. I'm 25, I'm 36 next week. I feel great, I look great. I'm sitting out about 20 pounds heavier than that younger me. So it took time, right? It was almost a decade of learning these lessons and listening, and finally listening to people who have been trying to lead me, you know, and gaining, you know, 4 or 5 pounds every year. And just slowly over time, you know, my early 30s, I really settled in, and now I'm able to maintain a level of leanness, have the physique I want, and really understand the science. So it's not a young man's game. You can definitely do it in your 20s, 30s, and even in your 40s. You just obviously have to really make sure you're paying attention to your diet, exercise, and not getting swept up on all these fad things. The research is right there. It's a slow process, so you know, that's probably why most people want to jump the ship and try these new fads. And you know, if somebody's telling you you don't need to eat more and train hard and gain the muscle, and you're somebody who's lean, the reality is you are going to gain some body fat, but they're pounds for a purpose. You can easily lose that excess, you know, 5 to 8 pounds of body fat, 5 to 10 pounds of body fat in a cut phase, super easy. And you're a leaner individual, so your body probably will want to lose that quickly. So that's kind of my parting words on this. For somebody who's at the higher end and you're just trying to lose the weight but get stronger, go after it. Attack your workouts in the gym, eat less, and then when you get to the point where eating less is starting to conflict with you training hard in the gym, where your energy levels are lower, your recovery is a little lower, then you have a decision to make of, if you want to lose more weight, keep on eating less, and let's maybe modify the workouts. And that's kind of how I would have that conversation with my clients. So if you guys like this video, you know, leave me a comment below. Hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, until next time, check out those videos down on the link. Send this to a friend who may need this. And just, you know, get after it. Make sure you're eating clean. Make sure you're training hard. Check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for tuning in.